What happened to the Lord of the Rings, my journey of love to disappointment? I know this will hurt, believe me, it hurts me to say it. But the Lord of the Rings, what in Middle-earth happened to you? The original trilogy remains untouchable, masterpieces of cinema that captured the magic of Tolkien's world like nothing else. They weren't just films, they were a pilgrimage into legend. And yet here we are, trudging through the aftermath like Sam and Frodo in Mordor, exhausted, disillusioned, and wondering why everything smells vaguely of burnt hope. My personal favourite has always been The Fellowship of the Ring. The tone, the adventure, the sheer sense of wonder. It had everything. We got introduced to Sauron's looming presence, the Witch King and the Nazgul, the terrifying Watcher in the water, which ensured no one ever trusted a pond again, Gandalf's wisdom, the epic battle with the cave troll, hordes of goblins and orcs, and of course, Saruman's treachery. With Christopher Lee delivering a performance so good it practically oozed villainy. And then, the Balrog, one of the most iconic moments in fantasy film history. "You shall not pass" became an immortal line, and Gandalf's fall into the abyss still hurts, even though we knew he'd be back.
You shall not pass!
The film had emotion, heroism, and tragedy, with Boromir's death at the hands of Lurtz still resonating as one of the most powerful moments in the trilogy. Sean Bean dying in a film was nothing new, but this one meant something. The moment was raw, heartbreaking, and a perfect send-off for a flawed but noble character, and the greatness didn't stop there. The Two Towers and the Return of the King continued the epic journey, delivering breathtaking battles, unforgettable character arcs, and emotional payoffs. The Battle of Helm's Deep, a cinematic masterclass in tension, pacing, and spectacle. And let's not forget Samwise Gamgee, the true MVP of Middle-earth, carrying both Frodo and the emotional weight of the entire story on his sturdy hobbit shoulders.
Come on, Mr. Frodo. I can't carry it for you, but I can carry you!
Beyond the films, we were spoiled with incredible PlayStation games. My personal favourite was The Two Towers, which let us experience the epic battles firsthand, complete with Howard Shore's music making even the most incompetent player feel like a hero. Then there was the Lord of the Rings Warhammer miniatures, beautifully modelled figures that let fans build, paint and battle in Tolkien's world. It felt like the franchise was at its peak. Then came the Hobbit films. With Peter Jackson back, I was excited. Were they on the same level as the Lord of the Rings? Absolutely not. There were production issues, too much CGI, goodbye, gritty realism, hello, PlayStation 3 cutscene aesthetics, and unnecessary filler. But despite all that, they had their moments, and Martin Freeman as Bilbo was a stroke of casting genius. The overuse of CGI took away the grounded feel of The Lord of the Rings. Legolas, whose presence was unnecessary, often looked animated. Bringing back characters not in the Hobbit novel felt like a forced tie-in. Legolas wasn't needed, and Tauriel's love triangle subplot added nothing. These choices bloated the runtime and detracted from Bilbo's journey. The tone was another issue. While The Hobbit is more whimsical than The Lord of the Rings, the films leaned too much into kid-friendly antics. Given their release after The Lord of the Rings, I expected a tone that matched Jackson's earlier trilogy better. Instead, we got cartoonish action, dwarves in barrels defying physics and slapstick humour that clashed with darker moments. That said, there were highlights. Misty Mountains was a masterpiece, perfectly encapsulating the dwarves' quest. Thorin confrontation, despite Azog's CGI, was one of the standout moments. The music, cinematography, and emotional weight made it compelling and felt like it belonged in Middle-earth. In the end, the Hobbit films were a mixed bag. Excessive CGI, unnecessary additions, and inconsistent tone held them back from the Lord of the Rings heights. Still, they weren't without charm, offering a return to Middle-earth that, despite flaws, was worth the ride. Fast forward a few years, and Amazon took up the mantle. Their goal? To create Middle-earth's answer to Game of Thrones. With the biggest budget in TV history, how could they fail? Well, by doing exactly what they did. The Rings of Power wasn't just disappointing, it was a complete betrayal of Tolkien's vision. The writing, nonsensical. The characters, poorly developed. The lore, treated like an optional side quest rather than the backbone of the story. Galadriel, one of the most powerful and wise figures in Tolkien's world, was rewritten into an arrogant, insufferable character who, if we're honest, would probably get banned from most social gatherings. Sauron's arc, butchered beyond belief. The pacing, a slow-motion train wreck. Rather than respecting the source material, it felt like the showrunners were more interested in ticking modern-day checkboxes than telling a compelling story. It was painful to watch, and for the first time I found myself hating something with the Lord of the Rings name on it. Then came The War of the Rohirrim, an anime-style film that felt about as Middle-earth as a cyberpunk nightclub. The animation style was jarring, the execution was weak, and once again the script seemed to be written by people who had skimmed the Lord of the Rings wiki page rather than actually reading the books. And of course they just had to throw in unnecessary girl boss elements that felt more like box ticking than authentic storytelling. Look, Éowyn is already one of the best female characters in literature. There's no need to manufacture forced empowerment when Tolkien already nailed it decades ago. So where does that leave us? 2 new Lord of the Rings films are on the way, starting with The Hunt for Gollum. Peter Jackson is involved, which gives me a glimmer of hope, but I can't help but feel skeptical. The events they're adapting were barely a couple of pages in the books. Aragorn searching for Gollum isn't exactly the Battle of Pelennor Fields. Without a solid Tolkien foundation to guide them, can they really make something worthwhile? I want to believe, but after The Rings of Power and The War of the Rohirrim, I'm struggling to stay optimistic. I'll always love The Lord of the Rings. The original trilogy will remain a cinematic masterpiece, and I'll continue to rewatch it, recite half the script, and weep over the score. But the franchise itself, it feels like an old marriage, still there out of duty, but the passion is gone. I keep watching, hoping for a return to greatness, but deep down, I know things will never be the same. Am I being too harsh or miserable? Let me know in the comments. If you enjoyed the video, like and subscribe. Until next time, peace out.